Do you guys remember this guy? His name's Omnom, and he's from the game Cut the Rope. This is one of the best designed and most creative mobile games in history, and it was made 15 years ago. Surely games have gotten way better since then.
If you're Patrick, then who's that?
Hey guys, it's me, Flying Gorilla, with my new app on the App Store, Flying Gorilla. It's a free download, so I hope you check it out, and I hope...
The mobile game market is massive. In fact, mobile games generate more revenue than PC and console games combined. But why is it so huge? So many games are filled with apps and in-app purchases which make the game feel unplayable. But if you go back like 15 years, this wasn't the case at all. Games were amazing and innovative, and there was hardly ever any ads or in-app purchases. So that brings up the question, what happened to mobile gaming? Contrary to popular belief, mobile gaming started way before smartphones. In fact, mobile games date all the way back to 1997. Nokia was the first company to start including games pre-downloaded on their phones, with the very first debut title being Snake. It was a huge success, and over time, Nokia has shipped out over 400 million units with Snake installed. Because of that, other manufacturers very quickly realized the potential, and by the early 2000s, mobile gaming was in phones, but it was very fragmented. There was a bunch of different marketplaces you could access depending on your carrier, but one of the biggest ways to get games on your phone at this point was through Java J2ME games. A lot of times these games weren't free, and they weren't always super accessible, but they paved the way for the earliest versions of mobile gaming. The main issue was accessibility. People didn't want to have to download games off a computer, so Nokia went out to solve that problem once again. You guys know about gaming phones? This thing was next gen. This thing was revolutionary. This thing was the Nokia N-Gage. It launched at a whopping $300, which, to put that in perspective, that is over $500 today. But Nokia's pitch was that you weren't just getting a gaming console, you were getting a phone as well. It even had its own library of gaming cartridges with some pretty big name titles too. We had Tomb Raider, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, even Sonic was on this thing. Unfortunately, it did not do great for many reasons, but the main reason was just that it wasn't that great of a gaming device. I mean, this side of the gamepad kind of reminds me of those gaming mice with like 12 buttons on the side. And the fact that you had to hold your phone like this in order to actually use it as a phone led to an entire website being created purely to mock this phone's design, and it's still up to this day. You can check it out. Gaming pre-smartphone era existed, but it just mainly suffered from accessibility. The iPhone changed everything though, because for the first time ever, buying and playing a game was completely effortless. All you had to do was open the App Store, see a game for like 99 cents, click download, and then you could play it a few seconds later. This frictionless access alone was enough to pull a bunch of players in. And unlike a handheld console, your phone was always with you. You didn't have to choose to bring it. Its touchscreen also gave us a whole new way to interact with games never before seen. I'm a firm believer that limitations increase creativity due to having to think outside of the box. In this case, the main limitation for game developers was they didn't have buttons. Well, physical buttons anyways. And buttons on mobile devices just don't feel that great and take up so much space on these tiny screens. That's why they're mainly just used for things like settings menu. This meant designers had three main ways to control games: swiping, tapping, and holding on the screen. It was basically like designing a PC game, but you could only use the mouse. Take good old Angry Birds back in 2009. On the surface, it was just launching birds at wooden forts. But what made the game so popular is how it was built with the touchscreen in mind. Sure, this game works perfectly well on PC, but I can almost guarantee if a designer went to make this game on PC, you would have been pressing buttons and things to be selecting your next bird, and it wouldn't have been nearly as elegant of a design as it is. Then in 2010, we had Cut the Rope, another physics-based puzzle game where you were supposed to slice ropes in order to feed candy to this little guy. What stood out is how they translated swiping into a cutting action, and this was used to solve all sorts of fun and clever puzzles. This game also had a ton of small little interactions like popping bubbles and pushing whoopee cushions. It gave designers the tools to make so many creative and well-designed levels. Even Disney jumped in 2011 with Where's My Water? In this game, you would cut through the dirt in order to guide streams of water to help this alligator Swampy take a bath. I feel like this game gets forgotten a lot when people talk about mobile games, but I personally loved it so much. It was so satisfying to cut through the dirt and figure out the problems, and just like in Cut the Rope, there was a ton of little micro interactions that gave designers so much to work with. It was one of the first big signals that major media companies like Disney were paying attention to mobile games and paying attention to the App Store. Arcade-style games thrived too. Look at Doodle Jump. You know how I said there was only 3 ways to control a game? Tapping, swiping, and holding? I lied. There's actually a 4th way. In Doodle Jump, you would actually tilt your phone left left and right in order to go higher and higher. It was super addictive and was definitely one of the earliest games to adopt these kind of tilt controls. And these are just a handful of amazing games that came out during this time. There are plenty, but we still have this level of accessibility today, if not even more. But there was one other factor that really defined this golden era of mobile gaming. That was the fact that almost every single game cost money. They were all priced like really cheap. Usually they'd be 99 cents. $3 was like a premium title, which meant that players now had to be intentional and careful about what they downloaded, and developers needed to make sure that their games were worth paying money for up front. The thing is, this wasn't entirely by choice. It wasn't until 2009 that Apple actually rolled out in-app purchases. But wait, didn't a lot of these golden era games come out after 2009? Well, yes, but the pricing model stuck around for a while because it worked. Developers sold their games for super cheap, people bought them, enjoyed them, and everyone was winning. Over time though, developers were starting to reach a cap on how much they could earn. Enter the freemium era of games. The freemium era started taking shape around 2012 when developers realized they could actually make a lot more money by getting people to download their game for free and then charging them through in-app purchases after the fact. This meant two things. Number one, their game was free, which meant a bunch more people were going to download them. And two, it completely removed that upper limit of how much they were making off of each player. These profits from in-app purchases and ads exploded and literally created a gold rush of mobile games. One of the first massive successes was Candy Crush. It introduced the lives system. You had a limited number of lives, and whenever you failed, you lost one. And if you ran out of all of your lives, you either had to watch an ad, pay money, or just wait until you got another life. Around the same time, Supercell released Clash of Clans following the release of Heyday a little bit earlier that year. One major monetization strategy implemented by Supercell was the time system. Upgrading buildings and such took real life time, and you could speed up the amount of time it took with gems. And since this game had a lot of competitive elements, it sort of made the game pay to win, since you could easily get stronger and accelerate faster than free-to-play players. The freemium era is also where we saw a big explosion of endless runner games. Subway Surfers was the really popular one, but I was a bit more of a Minion Rush kind of guy myself. Overall, during this era, we saw a huge shift in how games were designed. Since 1997, mobile games were always you pay for it and you get the whole game. But now games were being designed intentionally with monetization in mind. During my time studying game development in college, I had a ton of classes talking about ethics and morals in game design. The fact is, people are really easy to manipulate, and games give you so many opportunities to manipulate people into spending money. As a game developer, yes, you need to make money and monetize yourself, but it's important to know where the line is and not cross it. Look at loot boxes or gacha pulls. The second you let someone pay money for these, it literally just becomes gambling. But guess what? Kids can do it now too. I don't think I need to explain why that's a bad thing. It's gotten so bad that some countries have banned loot boxes altogether, and others are putting serious restrictions on these things. Unfortunately though, this monetization shift really benefited developers that cared about money more than ethics. And any game developer that just wanted to keep with their job or stay in the mobile market had to either change their ways or they might be out of a job. The era of designing player-first, fun mobile game experiences was over. And now there was a new goal, which was tricking players into spending as much money as possible and figuring out how to get them to watch as many ads as possible. This led to so much depth being stripped away from these games to the point that you can't even hardly call these games anymore. A couple months ago, Juniper Dev posted a video about your attention span in gaming, and they pointed out a really key detail about these mobile games.
These mobile games don't care if you enjoy your experience, really. They care that you opened the app, you watched an ad, maybe spent $5 and came back for your daily reward.
But this used to not be the case. I mean, back in the day, people would sometimes choose to play mobile games over console games, all because they offered new and exciting ways to play and they had a bunch of games with a lot of depth. Nowadays though, all of that's been stripped away and it's turned a market of games into a market of time killers with no real meaning. But that brings up the question of why. Why do we as consumers continue to support these cash grab games that no one likes? And that's because over time, it's the only thing we ever see. Advertising has become more relevant than ever due to the rise of social media. It used to be that a small development team could publish their game on the App Store, post about it online, post about it on YouTube, and if people really liked it, they would support it and it would end up on the homepage.
There's this rags to riches story with developers where they can actually be on their own, not with the company, and create an application, and that application then can turn into Doodle Jump.
And the power of being on these homepages is so insanely powerful. We are talking hundreds of millions millions to billions of impressions for your game every single day. Basically, the only way to find an app outside of the home tab is by searching for it directly. And what ended up happening is people essentially just bought the homepage. Small development teams that would release their game on the App Store for a couple bucks and then not have any sort of other way to monetize it after that just didn't have the same amount of money as successful games with the freemium pricing model. The only other games that ever really make it to the homepage on mobile are games that are based off huge IPs outside of the mobile space, like Genshin Impact, Fortnite, any Disney games, any Nintendo games, as well as sequels to these really famous classic games like Cut the Rope and Angry Birds, which have been completely changed to fit this freemium pricing model. Rovio even went so far as to take Angry Birds down from the App Store and then put it back on the App Store labeled Red's First Flight because it was pulling away too much traction from their newer games that had these much more insane monetization methods. The best thing we can do as consumers is to go out and try and find good games to support and just completely avoid even downloading these types of games that we don't want to see anymore. Do me a favor, go ahead and comment your favorite mobile game down below, one that you think other people should play. That way people can help out and support these titles. And if you like this video, you might enjoy this video about the death of motion controls in gaming. Anywho, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.